Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. В эфире программа Ushanka Show. My name is Sergey, and I like борщ. Меня зовут Сергей, я очень люблю украинский борщ. My special thanks и огромное спасибо to all my supporters on patreon.com. Thank you, comrades. It's greatly appreciated. So today we're going to try to wrap up the topic about crazy rich Soviet drivers. We already got 2 videos out about taxi drivers. If you missed them, you probably should check them out first. So once again, we're gonna come back and talk about this unusual situation when some specific professions were creating a lot of additional income. So once again, the official salary of the Soviet taxi driver was about 150 to 200 rubles, of course, depending on his experience and where he worked, big city or small city. And on the top of it, they could earn additional up to 1,000 rubles in so-called levak. So it's a left cash, left income. And there was a question about how much bribes a taxi driver had to pay in order to do their business. It's actually, they don't really pay bribes. It was more like sharing their income with other people at the taxi park. For example, they had to pay mechanics to make sure car is in a top shape. So you know, of course they're getting paid by government, but if you want to make sure that your car is always ready to go, you want to chip in a little cash to those dudes. Then they had washers, people that after you come back from the shift, they'll wash your car, they'll clean it. You want to give them some money. Kind of similar what's going on in American restaurants. You know, the tips only go to waitresses, but they have to give some to busboys, they're going to give some to cooks, so kind of similar. Then, of course, the most important person in a taxi park was so-called dispatcher. I don't know, so the one who dispatches, right? So they answer the calls. In the 80s, we had the system when they, you know, you can order taxi, and then they used like a primitive radio system to communicate to drivers about new clients. So you had to pay them a lot if you do something naughty, because they were watching your times, they were watching your miles. So those guys also had to be paid. So I would assume maybe close to 30 to 40% of income of that left income of the taxi drivers had to go to grease the wheels. And of course, if you didn't fit the team, like you were too honest, or you were not doing a good job and even not bringing money to pay kassa, or the required amount of money you're supposed to earn every shift, you can get like a worst car in the park, so you'll be constantly broke, or you'll go out and start driving your shift and then you break down and you can't do anything. So if they have a problem with anybody, they'll find a way to get you removed from the taxi park. So pretty much what I saw in people's memories about working at taxi parks, they said there was not a single honest person. Everyone was on the same team, maximizing their own profit, lining up with his expression, their own pockets. So considering how much additional income you could get being a taxi driver, that job was quite prestigious. You couldn't just walk in a taxi park and say, hey, I would like to work there. It's only can get the job по блату, what they call it. So if they have opening, there'll be already people like waiting to get in, you know, relatives, nephews, whatever. Requirements were quite basic. You should be at least 21-year-old. You should have a driver's license, of course, водительские права. No criminal record, so that's interesting. No criminal record whatsoever. No traffic violations whatsoever. And before beginning of your shift, they always will check you for alcohol. So they don't want any drunk drivers, which is obvious. Quite a few people commented on my previous video about taxi drivers that it's very similar to what's going on even in like capitalistic countries like United States, some Western Europe. We actually had a couple of things which totally different. We had customers that every taxi driver hated because they didn't use cash. They paid with so-called talony, or you can translate it as a coupon. So for example, cops, militia, KGB officers, party leaders, and also like a higher military officers, they could actually get a coupons at work So if he does something for a job, he needs to go quickly from one military office to another in Kiev. He'll stop taxi and he'll give him at the end of the trip this talon, which covers one trip up to 5 rubles, something like that. So of course taxi driver hated that because they had no cash. They had to just submit that coupon talon as a part of the kassa that they required to bring. There was another quite interesting service that taxi driver had to provide. They had sometimes to deliver mail. And I'm not sure, I think it's just they had to go to the central sorting facility and pick up bags with letters or maybe newspapers and then deliver them around to the postal offices. Not sure, probably something like that. And that was always also paid by talone, by coupons. But usually the way it comes, they will be order coming to taxi park. So postal office will submit order. We need, for example, one taxi driver today, all day, deliver mail. So this, and the taxi drivers, I said, hated it too because there was no cash. You're gonna work strictly on your meter and getting paid with those coupons. So regardless, someone had to take one for a team, right? So they had this interesting system I found out. So that'll be, you before you leave the park, go into your shift, you pick up a so-called putevой list, trip ticket. So this tells you what time you left, how many kilometers was on your speedometer, and such information, and you have a stamp. And that'll be one putevой list, the trip ticket for the postal office. So if you don't want to do that, you put 1 ruble under that trip ticket. So pretty much anyone who refuses has to put 1 ruble below, so then there'll be maybe 10 or 20 rubles laying under the trip ticket, and someone says, okay, fine, I'll do that. So he will take the trip ticket to work for the postal office all day, and he will pocket 20 rubles as the compensation from the other taxi drivers for running that errand. So one of the most important tools for the regular taxi driver, if he wants to make good money on the side, was to figure out how to work with his taxi meter installed in every car. And here you had to pay some money to mechanics because, if you want to reduce the amount of kilometers that you drive, so you put more pocket money in your pocket, then you need to also mess with the speedometer in the car. So you need to change kilometers on the car and kilometers on the meter. So they had the special tools. They had actually different nicknames for those. For example, one was called udavka, so it's like a choker. So that's the special tool that you can kind of like not install, but you can hook it up to your meter and you roll back the kilometers. And of course, this was the help of your mechanic. There was another little tool taxi drivers use. They can jam it inside of the meter and stop it from counting. So that one was called Kachareshka. So there's a different tools they use just to do that. For example, they can move the meter forward and then move it backwards. So for example, if the customer needed to get out for a minute to buy flowers or buy alcohol, so while you're waiting for him, you can actually use that long wire with the hook and add 50 kopecks or ruble to your charges, and after he pays you, you roll it back. So there was a way to mess with those, and they had all the nicknames: Talkushka, Kachareshka, Tyaglo, Udavka. So that was other ways they were optimizing their income, because cars didn't belong to drivers, so they didn't care. And of course, among the taxi drivers, they had people that prefer different ways how they operate, and it created different nicknames. For example, if the taxi driver preferred to hang out around airports or train stations, so there'll be aerodromщик for the ones that work airports, or vokzalщик for the ones that do the train stations or bus stations. And even if a taxi driver is supposed to work just in a city, some were practicing long distance service, which was kind of illegal. They got nicknamed Laboshiki, so same as the long distance truck drivers, Dalnaboyщик. So what we'll do, they will pack car, maybe it was like 4 passengers, maybe 5, who pay fixed rate, and they will take them, for example, like from Kiev to Chernigov, which is about 140 kilometers one way, and it will be just a little bit more money than buying a bus ticket, but using the meter, and of course if you know how to change the meter, they will take car full of people one way, so that will be, you got 5 guys, 5 ruble each, 25 rubles, then you do the same on the way back, and by kilometers you maybe need only to have 10 rubles and you made 100, so you can make good money doing a long distance haul. Then we had so-called Kachireshniki, which is kind of interesting word. Kachareshka, it's usually like when you have just you ate the corn and you have a cob left, so that's Kachareshka. So this guy that specialized of delivering fruits and vegetables from train stations to the market. So we had this collective farm markets, колхозные рынки. So people will come on a train and bring their potatoes in the bags or tomatoes, whatever. But they had no way of getting from the train station to the market, or it's painful to drag those bags on the bus. So there'll be taxi drivers offering that service. They will load up these bags and take you to the market, and of course they charge extra. Then we had also mebelщики, so that's a furniture guys, or холодильнички, the fridge guys. So they'll be hanging out, parked by the furniture stores or stores that sell appliances, and they will deliver your furniture in the car. So so you maybe have to wait till they bring a truck, or bring your own truck if you have a friend who does, who's a truck driver. But otherwise, they will get your furniture delivered. Of course, it will cost more than just a meter. Some of those guys actually offered help, since furniture was kind of not that easy to purchase. You have to wait on a waiting list, not long as cars, but sometimes 3 months, sometimes 6 months. I think we waited for our couch 6 months from the time we. It's not like special order. It's just you come, you put yourself on the list, and 6 months later it's your turn to buy a couch. So they will deliver that couch, for example, and also they could provide help. So for additional money, you just keep the waiting list, and I mean it would be quite a bit of money, but so he will share it with the people at the store and pocket some. Then we had so-called Spirtavosi, which is an interesting word. So the truck that delivers milk we'll call молоковоз, milk delivery, and this is a spirit, so it's like a pure alcohol delivery. So this guy is specialized in reselling vodka, since if you work night shift, stores already closed, but people want to have fun. They know that sometimes if you see a taxi parked on the curb, you can just ask him if he has any vodka for sale. If the bottle, for example, maybe 3 rubles or 4 rubles, he will sell you for 10, but when all the stores are closed. And that became extremely popular way of making extra money for taxi drivers after Gorbachev started his anti-alcohol campaign. Then stores were closed early and open late, so desperate people were willing to pay a lot of extra money to get a bottle of vodka after hours. Then we had such a term as центровые, so that's like people that work the center of the city. So that's the guys that work the most prestigious hotels, usually where the foreigners are. And I'm not sure how that was decided who is doing what, but I guess there will be people more senior, the ones that have connections, because that was probably the best spots you can make extra income is taking foreigners, because if they don't have rubles, they'll pay you with dollars, which you can resell and make a lot of money, or you can just say, hey, give me your baseball hat, or give me a pack of cigarettes, Marlboros. So that was a good income if you can work the hotels where the foreigners live. Another quite interesting terminology was щипач. So there's like a pincher. It's like you pinch a skin. So that's the drivers that would come to like a train station and they won't grab just anyone. They'll just park and then they go and they pick customers that can pay extra money. So they could tell by the look are you just a regular citizen or you the one who have money, the way your clothing or how they look, or maybe you're from Georgia. Looks like those guys always had money. So they will just selectively pick the customer, not the one who's turned in line and they leave. So those were pinchers. And of course, even if officially there was no sex in the Soviet Union, I wonder how many of you guys know that the story I shared with you some time ago about no sex in the Soviet Union. But there were drivers that were specializing in or delivering girls or taking people to places where they can get a prostitute. Sometimes they would offer their car, of course, for additional payment. So the drivers just go for a smoke while girls and guys having fun on the back seat. And since not many Soviet citizens owned the car, the whole concept of sex on the back seat, I don't think many Soviet girls lost their virginity on the back seat of the car. We had no such terminology like roadhead, stuff like that. This whole sex culture pretty much didn't exist, but probably existed with some taxi drivers. And also I want to talk a little bit about cars. So usually we used Volga, which kind of like a large size car for taxi service. And someone mentioned that he saw in the KGB museum or something in Moscow or somewhere else that a Volga car, like taxi car, had over 1 million kilometers. But it doesn't mean that Soviet cars were very reliable. It just because cars were in such a short supply, usually people did so-called kapitalny remont. So it's like a capital repair. So if you hit 100,000 kilometers, for example, or 60,000 kilometers, I believe, like in case it was a Lada car, you take it to the shop and they will remove the engine, remove transmission. They take engine completely apart. They will pretty much like by hand disassemble everything, clean it up, polish it, maybe make cylinders bigger, whatever needs to be done. Then they put it all together and then you drive again till it's another time to do the capital repairs. Because cars were so expensive and so hard to get, financially it made sense to maintain your car forever pretty much. I mean, there's people who bought cars in like late 70s or early 80s and they had, they drive them all their life, then they give it to their children and children drive. And of course, we didn't drive, like taxi drivers had to drive all the time, but most like private owners, in the winter, they all park their cars in the garages. They won't drive them in the winter because they don't want salt to affect the body because, cars. I was trying to figure out, like for the Lada style car, if you compare to the income of the Soviet engineer versus American engineer, we're talking like $300,000 for, just a Toyota Corolla size car. If you engineer here in America, that's a lot of money, right? To pay for the car, which is like manual transmission, everything manual, nothing automatic, no air conditioner. Well, my dear friends, дорогие друзья, I hope you learned something new today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think we're done with taxi topic. And we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye. Hey, by the way, cool merch for cool comrades is available at the Ushanka store at teespring.com. Just a friendly reminder that my book American Diaries is available on amazon.com, or shoot me an email if you would like to have a signed copy. Thank you. And if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.